Srivan from the Center of Excellence, IoT and AI, and I'll be your host for the day. First, let me give you a brief background. The Healthcare Innovation Challenge, or HIC as we call it, was conceptualized as a platform where healthcare service providers, medtech enterprises, or even technology players can bring their digital technology challenges and get those addressed by suitable curated solution providers from the innovation ecosystem in the country. First two editions have seen participation from 10 use case sponsors, and now 5 deployment engagements are in progress. The success of Challenge has also generated interest among non-hospitals, and in the current edition, we also have use case participation from GAPS Technologies at Aditya Birla Health Insurance Company, which is part of Aditya Birla Capital. I would take this opportunity to thank our strategic partners AstraZeneca, GE Healthcare, Novartis, and Siemens Healthineers. I'd also like to thank GAPS Technologies, Applied Materials, Amazon Web Services, and Medix Medical Service India Private Limited, who have come on board as sponsors to the HIC3. To kickstart today's event, I would like to invite Mr. Sanjeev Malhotra, CEO, Center of Excellence, IoT and AI, to deliver the welcome note. Over to you, sir.
All right. Thank you so much. A very warm welcome to everyone who have joined us today as speakers, as well as the large set of audience. It is really a pleasure, right, to see this Healthcare Innovation Challenge, a platform which we started a little over a year ago as a platform to basically address some of the use cases and challenges that are faced by the healthcare providers, by the people in the medtech industry, or even in the technology side or insurance. And it's really heartening to see this platform grow over a period of time, and the number of use cases that have increased steadily with each edition. Now this is the third edition we are doing. And you know, we started with the basic principle and the thought process that innovation cannot be done in isolation. We really have to work together. You know, when we are talking of healthcare, it is important that doctors are involved, hospital administrators are involved, insurance people are involved, and of course, technology and the medtech companies, the pharmacy, the pharmaceutical companies, you know, all of them play an important role and get a viewpoint, you know, which is important for addressing or moving forward when we talk of the evolution of healthcare delivery. So I'm so happy that we have, you know, this time addressing 9 use cases, which we'll be discussing subsequently in the session today. And with that, you know, I'd like to welcome our esteemed speakers. In the first half of the program, Dr. Ajay Garg from MIT. Thank you so much, Dr. Garg, for joining and the support of MIT, you know, which is, and it's a MIT initiative overall. The COE is a MIT initiative along with the state government, and so happy that Dr. Garg, who spearheads the startup program from the corridors of MIT, a lot of guidance and support. Dr. Jürgen Simon from Siemens Healthineers in Germany. So thank you so much, Jürgen, for joining. Mr. Satish Chandra, who's head of renal care and head of India side, Baxter, expert on the renal side of things. You know, we look forward to working with you and your team on some of these complex use cases and some of the innovations in the area which your team has been talking about. So thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Mr. Bhaskar Madala, CEO of Third Eye, a technology company based in Gurgaon. Thank you so much, Bhaskar. Mr. Srinivasan Sundarajan from GAPS, thank you so much for joining us, and look forward to meeting you in Chennai sometime next month. Mr. Raghavan, you know, who's from AWS, I believe. Thank you so much for being support on this. And lastly, Ms. Sigil Atsmon from UK, I believe. No, thank you so much. You know, we have been interacting over the emails, and I look forward to meeting you in person one of your India trips. And look forward to hearing all of you, the panelists, subsequently after that. And with that, I'll hand it over back to you.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your visionary thoughts. Your guidance is invaluable in successful execution of this initiative. Ministry of Electronics and IT is the creator of Center of Excellence, IoT and AI program, and has been a continued supporter. Without their support, the COE won't have existed at all. Today, we are honored to have Dr. Ajay Garg, Senior Director, Ministry of Electronics and IT, as the special keynote speaker. I welcome Dr. Ajay to the session, and we look forward to hearing his thoughts. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Patvi. Let me on the onset congratulate Sanjeev, Sudhanshu, and the various industry partners who have come both from the healthcare side and from the tech side, who have come forward to do such a novel cause because there cannot be anything more pressing as a need in the present times than healthcare, which has faced the most humongous kind of challenge that we in our generation have seen, that the mankind has seen. And I thank you for where you have actually brought the whole ecosystem together to solve problems on ground. Uh, Let me on the onset say that we are living in a very interesting times as far as digital is concerned. A time when Industry 4.0 is maturing out. Pandemic has shown that digital can only be a solution which can connect all the dots and which can keep the life normal in the toughest of times. And at the same time, the 5G is being rolled out in many geographies and are in the process of being rolled out in very near future in other geographies. So all these three bring together large number of opportunities for the digital to grow and at the same time serve the 7 billion population globally in a much more meaningful way as compared to what the industry 3.0 did when we had the large number of these social media platforms and other e-commerce platforms emerging out and actually impacting the first 1.5 billion people globally. Industry 4.0 has the opportunity to touch base around to every in a single individual that resides on this globe, and that's the huge amount of opportunity that digital has. So what it does differently is that Industry 4.0 is where the problems from core economic sectors, which are traditional core economic sectors, be it healthcare, education, logistics, manufacturing, you name a sector. Now the future productivity, future growth in these sectors and future innovation in these sectors will be through digital. And that is one thing that is for sure in the Industry 4.0. And when it combines with 5G as a core a vehicle on which these technologies will travel, creates a huge amount of opportunities in this space. And when it comes to this as an opportunity where technology or digital impacting other sectors of economy, who other than Indian innovation can actually play a key stellar role in this, with its 70,000 plus startup ecosystem, with a country which actually understands problems and has the skill set to solve those problems, and with a country with a market size of 1.3 billion plus, has all the right ingredients in place to actually make a huge impact in this era. And in this context, if I look at that in the present challenge, I thank NASSCOM for taking a very key initiative of setting an example where a technology solves problems for other sectors of economy, provided that all stakeholders come onto the single platform. The seeker provides the problems and the solutions are provided by digital ecosystems that exist in this country. I'll also like to say that the government of India has actually has realized that technology is the key driver for future technologies. We have an ambitious target of ramping up of our digital economy from present 300 to $350 billion to $1 trillion by in the next 5 years. And in this ambitious target, all these initiatives are very important to be ramped up and create economic values. At the same time, we established a number of center of excellences. We talked about this one, but there are 26 other such sectors of center of excellences around the country. The key objective of all these center of excellences is to bring all the ecosystem players from targeted to one sector of economy, electric vehicles, be it agriculture, be it education, be it healthcare. So we have seen that we create a center of excellence where the problem solving is around one key area, and we bring all the key players to these 26 center of excellences. 4 center of excellences are being driven by NASSCOM, and this is one such initiative under these center of excellences, and you all will understand the impact it makes on ground. On the other hand, what we have done in this period, that we realized that if the technology has to mature and actually create a difference, government also has to show keenness to adopt it. So whereas industry-driven challenges are being done by entities like NASSCOM, who are best fitted for this, we ourselves, through the mighty startup hub, which we have created as a single window to bring the whole tech startup ecosystem onto a single platform, has actually run a number of challenges when video conferencing was a key challenge, and the platform on which we are actually connected today showed some concerns around security. And the government will be the most sensitive to such security concerns. We thought that let's bring an Indian secured VC solution, which is indigenous and made in India, because if we have to actually make a difference and be an important player, then Atmanirbhar or indigenization of technologies has to be key. So we ran a challenge to identify a video solution for the government to use. And we actually, the prize money was incommensurate with the licensing fees or something where we are able to give some decent amount to the winner. We thought that, as Sanjeev thought, that very few people will participate, or there might not be enough enthusiasm or enough maturity. But you'll be happy to know that 1982 Indian startups participated in that challenge. And it took us whole amount of effort for 2 months to identify a winner. And at the end of it, we were not able to find one winner, but we ended up finding 4 winners. The winner, what the difference it did is the winner, all video conferencing meetings of the government of India are being held on this. In last 2 years, that solution actually has been onboarded by 79 central government departments. More than 100,000 meetings have been held on that platform. Getting confidence around such challenges, we ran a next challenge where we thought that if good quality and quantity drinking water is a challenge for the Indian heartland, then we need to find an IoT-based solution. And we, with Jal Shakti Mission, ran a challenge, identified 4 companies. They did POC in 100 remote villages in this country, showed some great results, and gave confidence to the Jal Shakti Mission to actually execute such programs pan-India. And that will be something of a game changer, I think. We have run more than 10 challenges where I've been only given 10 minutes. In addition to that, we have been running a lot of incubation facility around the country, supporting them to create a battery of deep tech startups. We thought that the country has matured now to run deep tech startups. We not only have incubated, but we started the first acceleration program called the Samrit, where we thought that if economic difference has to come around the startups, it has to be the acceleration or the scale up which has to be given importance. So Government of India first time supported a acceleration program for Samrit, and in which we have identified 22 accelerators to actually scale up the great amount of. So my point is that we in the present times are living in a world where technology or digital will impact every human on this globe, and entities like all the key tech players, the key problem providers, when brought in by a single entity such as NASSCOM, can actually create huge amount of difference. And I congratulate all the 4 winners in this challenge. And I know that it is easy to come on to be the top, but I wish and I promise you all support to stay at the top and remain the flag bearers in your journey to create a difference to the mankind through technology. Thank you once more for giving me this opportunity to connect with you. Look forward to working closely with NASSCOM in future. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your inspiring words. We are really honored with your gracious presence here. MedTech enterprises play a key role in success of our initiative. Siemens Healthineers has been one of the consistent supporters of our healthcare initiative and has provided extensive support to us through their sponsorship of COE as well as through sharing of their domain knowledge, which has helped us in fine-tuning our programs. I'd now like to invite Dr. Jürgen Simon, Head of Technology Accelerators, Siemens Healthineers, for the first industry keynote. Over to you, Dr. Jürgen.
Yeah, thank you for your kind words. I was told actually I could share some slides with you, and let me see if that works. Can you see my slide?
Yes, Dr. Jürgen, we can see.
You can see my slide? Sorry.
Yes, we can.
I cannot hear you at the moment anymore. I just want to start seeing this. Also, thanks again for having me. I think, I mean, HIC, I really like the initiative, also from a Siemens Healthineers standpoint, because I think it's one of the very few initiatives in the world where you actually bring together multiple clinical stakeholders and multiple startups. So I think that's really an ingenious setup and a great way to move things forward. And I guess we all here because we believe in open innovation, because we all believe that one party, no matter how competent, no matter how powerful, no matter with how much money, can actually solve the healthcare challenges alone. And this is why we believe in open innovation, where we bring together academia, government, companies, larger companies, startups to solve the healthcare challenges together. And I'm particularly focused on startups, and so this event is also, so I thought it would be great to share some thoughts with you on, what brings startups and corporates together. And so when we work with startups, what do we typically see what they expect from us? I mean, something that always comes up very early, of course, is investments. I'm going to speak in a second about why that might be not such a great idea. But of course, startups are always also looking for revenue opportunities with us. They want to explore new customers, new regions together with us, and that's great. They want to have us as a customer, an approach I particularly like. And of course, they want to get access to our deep domain expertise, and discussions on regulatory processes in various countries and various regions often come up. Of course, the startups also want to increase their relevance by being associated with the brands of the companies such as us, and are looking to get support with their infrastructure. And of course, in the end, for a startup, which is designed somehow to be transferred to a larger corporate at some point, they're also always looking for exit opportunities. But you might ask, why do corporates or medtech corporates even need startups? I think the medtech corporates need startups because startups help us to accelerate innovation, since just because they can be more focused on their single problem. And of course, they also have an accelerated go-to-market, which might surprise you a little bit. But you must remember that the startups actually have a very, very thin layer of organizational structure. So I can tell you for corporate, it's not always that easy if you're bringing an idea forward within a corporate to actually then get to your customers, because there are multiple layers of marketing and sales involved. That's obviously not the case for the startups. So they can be much faster on that end. They have a lot of times solution tailored to the specific customer needs and new ways of doing business, which is pretty interesting to us. And they also have already reduced some of the development or business risk that every new idea inherently has. So they've taken that away already to some extent. They already have been with customers and maybe already had first sales. So they have proven that an idea actually works. What is the best way, in my opinion, startup to work the corporate? It's not necessarily investment, as I mentioned before. It's a lot of time the first thing that comes to mind if a startup thinks about the corporate, or even in our organization, when we think about startups, a lot of people immediately think of startup investments. But you have to remember that investing and cooperating with a startup can be two very different things for a corporate. Now, often different organizational units are involved. So investing into a startup and cooperating with a startup are two very different things for corporate. And from that perspective, we often see that the establishment of the partnership or a customer-client relationship is way better for us to connect with a startup than an immediate investment. And that is an approach that for some time now, a couple of years only, has been, let's say, branded venture clienting. It's still a little bit a Eurocentric naming, I would say. It has been pioneered by the BMW Startup Garage, where BMW around 2015 decided to step away a little bit from larger investments into startups and focus more on actually cooperating and working with startup as the first step of engagement. And that's what we are also pursuing with the Siemens Technology Accelerator and with a lot of other touch points with startups within Siemens Healthineers. And I guess I just want to mention one to you. One of the many touch points of startups doing business, doing partnership with Siemens Healthineers is our Syngovia Open Apps platform. That's a platform where we can take on startups and actually do business together with them. We put their digital solutions on our platform, and they immediately can reach out to all the Siemens Healthineers customers based on our Syngovia imaging platform. And we're doing this in two approaches. On the one hand, we have startups on that platform who already do business, who have the necessary regulatory approvals, and can immediately start to address their customers through our platform. On the other hand, our Syngovia platform also has a feature that is called Frontier. That's more directed as research prototypes, which do not have a regulatory approval and that might need validation and feedback from clinicians. The same principle goes here. Basically, every customer who has access to this platform can immediately then work with the solution from the startup. And we see this as having a great impact already with some of our partners. So you can see on the right, there are a lot of partners already on the platform, and we incorporating more by the day. And that's a fantastic way to really work with startups to actually help them generate business and have them help us serving our customers better and attaining our vision. And a huge part of our vision these days is centered around the digital twin or the patient twin, where we think about as being the future of healthcare delivery, being about having all information in one place available, all your healthcare information from the past, all your current healthcare information, and thereby have a lifelong personalized digital model of the patient, which can be updated with every measurement, which can be updated with every scan, with every diagnostic the patient gets, so that we can actually track the past, control the present, and simulate the future with a digital twin of the patient. And we're very much looking forward to have startups support us in this journey. And that's why I'm particularly fond of initiatives like the ones we are seeing today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yogin, for sharing your knowledge and wisdom. We are thankful to you for gracing the occasion with your presence and look forward to continuing engagement with you. Thank you so much. Scope of healthcare transformation is not limited to the hospitals and medtech players. Life sciences players play a key role in the healthcare sector and are a critical component of the success of the sector. I now invite Mr. Satish Chandra, JE VP Renal Care System and Hardware, Site Head R&D, Baxter, for the second industry keynote session. Over to you, sir.
Hey, are you folks able to hear me okay? Okay, thank you. So first of all, Dr. Jürgen Simon, it's very, very nice to see you in person and hear you for the first time. I've been eagerly following the Siemens Healthineers and especially the open innovation for a few years. Baxter R&D has still got a long way to go. So as a student of innovation, been looking forward and seeing how Siemens is navigating the entire ecosystem. So always open to steal all the best ideas, without any shame. That's the philosophy of me as an engineering person. Okay, but in that part of it, I'd like to first of all thank the NASSCOM for inviting me, and also thanks Sanjeev and Sudhanshu for making this particular opportunity for us. The objective is for me for the next few minutes talk about three things. One, the medtech macro trends with respect to our kind of a profile of a Baxter as a company associated with it, which is a mix of diagnostics, pharmaceutical, life sciences, and things like that. That's more of a therapy-oriented company. What does medtech macro trends mean for us? And what does it mean in the digital space, and why we are eagerly looking at collaboration with NASSCOM and the ecosystem in and around us associated with it. And of course, I will give a quick few minutes overview of Baxter and as a company and what we do as a Baxter R&D. So those are the three things which I want to talk to you folks about it. So first, I will start with a little bit of Baxter. Baxter is a 90-plus-year-old company, but in India, the Baxter R&D is a pretty young. It is just about 5-plus-year-old R&D company associated with it. From a revenue standpoint, Baxter is a $15 billion company, and we do multiple kind of products. We are into dialysis, we are into nutrition, we are into advanced surgery projects, which we are also in the pharmaceutical, which basically have the generics, premix, things like that. We are also into infusion pumps. And recently, with our acquisition of Hillrom, we are now getting more into digital and a connected care organization and a therapy delivery organization. And that is one of the primary reasons why we as a company is very much interested to have further collaborations with the esteemed organization like NASSCOM, because we feel that it gives us an opportunity to charter what we see as the future for Baxter in the connected care environment. From a macro trend standpoint, from a Baxter, based on our particular business model, there are a few specific trends which I think is many of you folks are already aware of it. We are a healthcare company, and healthcare medtech, typically our products lifespan is about 7 years, but of course doctors and patients use it for 10 plus years. Recent challenges in the economy, in the commodities, in the supply chain, as well as what we are seeing in the electronic structure in the semiconductor, is asking us to rethink a lot of things associated with it. So that is one specific trend which you're looking at it in part of it. Second, COVID has brought a different wave of view for us as a thing. What we mean to say is that previously, most of our particular products run in either clinics or in hospitals where it is required a part, but now people are more open to do the treatment at home. Now, when the patient moves at home, a large ecosystem will have to move to the patient at home. And as the patient comfortability getting treatment at home increases, which means that it also means that all the infrastructure, all the digital pieces also needs to start moving in a different pace associated with it. Now, that is one trend which we are seeing, which makes it look at part of it. Second trend we also see is that as a byproduct of the COVID, we see the regulatory bodies are more open to innovation, especially in the digital space, because that can be consolidated by, if you see the number of emergency use authorizations given by FDA and other places in the digital products in the last 2 years, and in the therapy or in the diagnostic products, which I think is something which is of interesting to us associated with it. The third thing, which is a macro trend, which you're looking at it, is that we are also seeing a trend of the shortages, and we anticipate the shortages, at least in most of the community places, in the nursing sector. So which basically means that the average lifespan of a nurse is going to come down. There'll be going to be more churn in the nursing community, which basically means that as a therapy-oriented company, we cannot rely on the expertise of the nurse to become what we would call as to deliver the quality of care, what we want to do, which basically means that what has happened in maybe the diagnostic space a few years back in the MR, CTs, X-ray, I would say in the therapy space, digital things like AI, ML, things to look at few things. Those are things which we see as a macro trend over the next few years, looking at part of it, because the machines needs to become more smarter. The therapy needs to become more dummy proof. There should be more intelligence for auto correction, things like that, which basically looks at other things which we're going to see in the space. So these are some of the big macro trends which we see in the organization, and this also leads it what we see as why we are looking in the digital innovation space, because we see as a mixed model of a therapy, medtech, diagnostic provider. Our particular innovation space in the digital is going to open up a lot of opportunities for us as a business, and a lot of opportunities for us. And our Baxter vision is to save and sustain lives. And one of the beauty about a Baxter is that in many places, we are there is no someone between a Baxter machine and a patient, which basically there's no doctor, there is no nurse, there's no radiologist. Most of our equipment are actually connected live to the patient, which basically means that for us, as we embark in the journey of the digital innovation and the way which you want to move in the various stuffs, Baxter cannot do it alone. And as Dr. Jorgen Simon told us, sometimes big corporations, we can't move at the speed to look for. That is where open innovation and collaboration with the startups and things like that is going to be very key for us. And that's the reason eagerly looking forward to partner more in the course of it with NASCOM and leverage your expertise as we proceed in this journey for Baxter R&D. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Satish. I'm sure that we have acquired some immense knowledge from your talk, and we look forward to using this knowledge in our future programs as well. Nothing can progress without innovation, and hence the technology plays a key role in advancing innovation solutions in the healthcare as well. I now invite Mr. Bhaskar Madala, CEO of Third Eye AI JBM Group, for the third industry keynote session. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, hi, Parthy. Thank you very much. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible, Mr. Bhaskar.
Wonderful. Thank you very much once again, Parthy. And first of all, I would like to thank Sudhanshu, Sanjeev, and my colleagues, the NASCOM colleagues, and also the esteemed panelists. And it was wonderful to hear Satish and also Simon. And likewise, it was quite enlightening, and it was an honor to also hear Mr. Garg, the talk from there. It was quite a humbling experience, and I would say a learning experience to hear from all the esteemed guests here. And unlike quite a few here, right, I'm a pure technologist who has come from hardcore technology, from the background from particularly on the digital technologies, and then trying to see, right, and as a pure technologist, my endeavor always have been, how can I solve a business problem leveraging technology? So today, I mean, my interest was to talk more from a technology point of view into the healthcare sector and what are the observations and some of the learnings what we have had in the past couple of years working on that. So just to give a background about what we do. So I'm from JBM Group. So which is a manufacturing, predominantly around the manufacturing, and it's a 40-year-old organization with about 65 odd manufacturing plants in about 10 countries, with a revenue of roughly about 2.2 billion USD. So that's what we are. And one of the companies, which is what I lead, is Third Eye AI, which is purely focusing on the digital technologies, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and Industry 4.0, and to see how we can use these technologies to solve business problems, not just necessarily for manufacturing, but for the different industries. So over the last 1 year, we have been a lot more focused on looking at what are the business problems in the different industries, which includes healthcare too. And that's how we have been working on part of that. So I must say that it's been very, very interesting to hear Simon and as well as Satish, particularly looking at the healthcare sector and to that. And as Satish mentioned, I think COVID really brought up a lot of learnings for us, right? And I would say it has frankly tested, right, our preparedness, right, to the core. It has taught us, right, to be prepared and what to expect when you are actually least expecting something, right? For instance, I think it has also taught us something how to be prepared better. So healthcare costs have really increased, and that has put up a lot of strain on all the people, the hospital management, the insurance companies, looking at the pharmaceutical companies, the vaccinations, and also the supply chain, right? Supply chain of the managements. All those things you have been put it across, and a lot of strain around with that. And some of the other observations has been that due to the COVID pandemic, a lot of non-COVID related medication in the treatment has been put onto the back burner around with that, right? And again, there is a very, I would say, the demarcation between what to treat and what not to treat at that point of time. I think the demarcation has blurred quite a bit around with that. And we observed that even for the COVID, right? I mean, a lot of things, the parameters and the carriers around with that, and the treatments kept changing around every alternate months and kind of thing. And this has brought up the question in terms of the diagnostics itself, right? And whether in technology can play a critical role in terms of the diagnostics, and what are the other areas where you can help around with that. And some of the other things, for instance, you're talking about the emergency treatments, you're talking about the safety planning, you know, the employees across in terms of the non-touch authentication, the emergency management, talking about the contact tracking. So these are some of the other things which have really been quite, I would say, brought up to the notice of a lot of organizations, not necessarily not necessarily restricted to the healthcare and the hospitals around with that, right? A lot of things really got tested. If you look at it from that, the hospital management, you're talking about the availability and tracking of the healthcare professionals around with that. I think Satish was mentioning about the nurse stations around with that, right? Which has become quite critical around with that. How do you look at the availability of and the planning of the nurse stations or the doctors or the health professionals around that? And more importantly, I think the supply chain of the medicines and the medical equipment too, and the early diagnostics. So this has become something of a quite, the things which were tested, which were also looked at it, and a lot of focus had to go into these things, right? And again, the impact of this was not just necessarily to the hospitals. For instance, if you look at JBM Group, right, we had this issue too, right from the time when we didn't know at every day which employee or the worker is going to turn up and who's not going to turn up around with that. And that had been a constant. I mean, coming from a very structured and a manufacturing organization, it was very important for us. And to again have the safety and the of the employees too, the workers too, right? The compliance, safety, some of these. So because of this, we started investing on producing an AI solutions and Industry 4.0 solutions, right? Right from which covers the journey, right from the worker when he enters the plant or the office premises, to the time where the whatever the produce or the output is delivered to the customer. Now, the solutions of this, what we observe, has a lot of solves the problem with respect to the other industries as well, including the healthcare industry around with that. And some of the solutions, particularly the computer vision and the analytics, and also like of the other technologies like conversational AI and a host of other digital technologies, we believe, I think that has the that can get the right visibility and the insights into the data. Those are the technologies which would be of paramount importance into the healthcare industry as well. right? But all said and done, I think what I really was quite happy with the HIC is that it has brought together the much needed collaboration between all the stakeholders. Let's talk about the technologies. It brought in the technologies, the hospitals, the medical professionals, the insurance companies, right? All those people it has brought together to collaborate, right? And particularly what it is important is that all the solutions, what I think a lot of startups have come up and particularly pitched for different solutions for a better customer or a user experience around with that. At the end, right, I think empathy is of utmost importance, more important in healthcare than probably any other industry around with that, right? And as long as the processes and the innovation, whatever you're doing, right, we align it to the basic principle that the person needing the treatment, right, and should not worry about anything other than just the treatment. You should not worry or waste time for anything other than the treatment. I think that's the right innovation we should be looking at, right? So the question comes back again: can technology help the different challenges, the current challenges we have? Absolutely, yes, it can help that. Now, what are those areas where we believe that the technology can help? I mean, we have seen, I think, from Baxter and as well as from Siemens, right? There are a lot of particularly the Industry 4.0 solutions which are quite helpful, right? Particularly, I mean, looking at the sensor-based technologies and also the devices which can help, particularly with the disabled people around that. There are so many different solutions and the technologies which could be put into use around with that. The other area which is quite important is the hospital operations around with that. Now, why it is important? You can create a digital thread right from the patient, inpatient or outpatient, right, to the insurance claims and kind of thing, the nurse stations, the ICU, the emergency management, all those things using the computer vision technologies and a host of other digital technologies. Now, this plays a very important role for the operational efficiencies point of view, right? Again, we also can, the technology can play a very, very vital role in the, what you call it as the proactive care, the preventive care, right? Start from the wellness itself, right? The insurance company traditionally have been focusing a lot, for instance, on the medical bills and the treatment. Whereas I think the correlation between the preventive care from the wellness to and reducing that. So insurance can also probably look at that. Some of these models can correlate the data right from the wellness and how does it reduce the overall claims around with that. So that is something around, again, the ML models can help, postulate that. Now, the doctor's assistance is another area which is really coming up. The digital doctor assistant, for instance, right? I mean, using of conversational AI and particularly voice, which is natural language processing, can play a very, very important role around with that into in the doctor's assistance part of that. Now, medical research is again another area where the technology can play a very, very vital role, right? However, I mean, let me put it this way. If I have to make it in one single statement, the medical research, or if I say that, right, it's data rich, but there is a lot to be done, particularly in terms of gaining the knowledge around that. There's a lot of data. Every hospital, if you look at it, or the medical or the pharmaceutical company has tons and tons of data. But are you getting the real insights from that? And how can you do a proactive or preventive care, early treatment, diagnostics? I think that's the area. Yes, the research has started on that, but there is still a long way to go around with that, right? And people talk about using, and what happens is this requires actually, if you look at it, a extensive amount of collaboration between the technologists, the data scientists, and also the medical researchers. A lot of times my observation has been that, you know, the work is being done by the data scientists who may not really understand the core problem statement, what they're trying to evolve. As a result, the machine learning or the AI or the machine learning models, what has been generated, doesn't necessarily resolve or addresses the core issues what we have, the medical professionals or the researchers have that. So what is actually required is an extensive collaboration between the data scientists, the technologists, as well as the medical researchers around with that. And more often than not, right, I mean, these are a long journey. This is a very long journey. A lot of companies, particularly pharmaceutical companies whom I have been interacting with, or the hospitals, have started investing onto the AI ML, but they realize that, probably it is not giving them the ROI. And the reason is because they are probably working in a very siloed approach and kind of thing, right? I think organizations and the hospitals or the pharmaceutical companies need to be patient in this journey around with that. right? And there is a lot of things which can be worked on with the data, particularly the AI and ML models can help in the early diagnostics based on all the data, the statistical data, what is available. The organizations and the hospitals and the pharmaceutical companies very rightly, guard this data as the core IP. But I think that's one reason the data scientists work probably in a very siloed and don't really understand the problem statements and vice versa, right? So this has been what I call, the areas where the technology, I believe, can be of assistance and support that. But all said and done, right, irrespective of all the technological parameters and advancements, it can, as long as they are aligned, they can really be of help if they are aligned. The processes, the systems, the innovation, if they're all aligned towards the betterment of serving people, the betterment and what I call it as serving the people with love and care, only then these technologies and everything would be of use and what I call the best purpose in terms of that. So what I believe, I think the journey, one of the things which I have observed is that everyone wants change, but seldom people want to change on that. And that's true to every industry. Healthcare is no different. In my personal experience, I've seen quite a few hospitals and there where the IT professionals want different solutions, want a lot of technologies and the tools which will help the doctors, the medical professionals, ease their entire, the experience of that. But they don't want to change at all, right? They don't want to use, they don't want to learn new things around with that. So it's very difficult around with that. Now, what I also believe, I think these kind of HIC events, particularly bringing all the stakeholders, would more of these, particularly in terms of the collaboration on the medical research, would be quite helpful. And one important thing which I believe is that if you're designing the
Mara is
solution,
going to present here. Two events. There's NASCOM Healthcare Symposium. Yeah, like.
All right. So one of the other things I believe is that people in the healthcare industry have been innovating a lot more on the operations part of that, right? And you're looking at, particularly if you look at Gartner's space layer strategy, a lot of research or whatever the innovation has happened on building, the system of differentiation, which is around the processes or on records, but less innovation has happened in the system of innovation, which is more customer or end user driven around with that. So into that aspect, I think the innovation has started, but there is a lot more to go around with that. And another important aspect, I believe, which needs, particularly in India, is around the data privacy around that, particularly the confidential patient record. How do you, we need to create some comprehensive frameworks around with that in protecting the patient healthcare records and the data privacy around with that. This, in broad way, I feel some of the instant or the immediate next steps we can do in our journey on the digitization in the healthcare sector. So again, I think it's been a very, very humbling experience for me listening to all the experts here. And once again, thank you, Sudhanshu, for inviting me here. Thank you once again, the NASCOM team and everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Bhaskar, for sharing your knowledge. It was indeed very insightful to hear your expert comments, and we look forward to continuing our association with you. Thank you. Moving on, we have some very interesting and intuitive technology keynotes from some of the industry experts. The role being played by technology industry in the health sector cannot be underestimated. Technology industry has a key role to be played in innovations and digitalization of the healthcare industry for building up advanced infrastructure solutions and scaling up of deployments. Solutions providing the 360-degree view of the patient for personalized treatment and patient care are going to revolutionize the healthcare sector. I now invite Mr. Srinivasan Sundararajan, VP Technology, GABS, for the first technology keynote. Over to you, sir.
Sure. Thank you, NASCOM team, and thank you for all the earlier speakers for providing a lot of knowledge into the subject. I will just quickly introduce about GABS, and during my presentation, can I share, correct? I can share a slide. Is that okay?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, because that will be easier for the people to follow it. So I represent GABS Technologies. We are based at Chennai, but predominantly serving the healthcare clients in North America and as well as in India. And we have been recognized for the healthcare solutions by Gartner, Everest, as a very niche and very important provider in this space. Okay, so one of our key concentration has been to provide digital services for the healthcare in various technology domains. Definitely, it consisting of data lakes, data mining, AI, blockchain, mobility, all the digital technologies. But the technologies in itself, without the use cases are not that much useful, because all the technologies can be easily acquired with the people, but unless you really target on the specific use cases on the healthcare, these technologies may not be of much use. So what my presentation is about, some of the emerging use cases in the healthcare that we currently concentrate, which would be almost be same for most of the people here. But let me just quickly share those use cases and the relevant technologies behind them. So again, right, it's not like these use cases we have invented on our own. So we definitely follow various analysts, especially Gartner, Forrester, Everest, and other analysts, of course, HIMSS and other players in this area to understand the trends. So we, as a solution provider for the healthcare technology, we classify the emerging use cases under 3 directions. Okay, definitely the use cases relevant to healthcare providers, so that they provide a better care at early intervention and other things to the patients. Second thing, from a payer perspective, payers are at a very disadvantaged stage because of the the overall cuts in the payments from the government and increased liabilities and other things. So there is a trend to for the payers to increase the efficiency of the healthcare itself, what is known as a value-based care. Payers are no longer wanted to just pay per service, rather they wanted to pay per outcome. Okay, so that they want to keep the population of the patients as healthy as possible, so that they don't there is no need for a lot of hospital visits and those kind of this thing. The third and the most important are the consumers, because not everybody is a patient. A consumer, we use the term because today's healthcare is more about prevention, which means that a lot of intervention has to happen before even somebody goes to the hospital. Okay, because by with a healthy lifestyle and with the proper advice, you could avoid a lot of illness itself. So the 3 major pillars are the consumers, the payers, and the providers. Okay, because of the time, I didn't list every emerging use case that is in. I just listed 3 per each of this. Okay, of course we could definitely discuss more of that in an offline mode. But if you really see, we categorize them under improved experience from a consumer or a patient point of view, better care from a provider point of view, and more value for the cost from a payer point of view. Okay, because why it is called improved experience is what is known as a consumerization of the healthcare from a patient perspective, which means that patient need not any longer goes to an hospital which is remote, waiting at the reception, waiting at the clinic, waiting for the test and all those kind of this thing. More and more healthcare is getting decentralized, which means that you no longer have to go to a centralized location to get the treatment, rather the treatment comes to where you are. Okay, so that is the trend that is happening on the consumer side. And of course, the AI playing a major role in helping the patient or the consumer to take better decisions. Okay, earlier, correct, he is totally tied to the doctor to take the decision. Today, correct, a lot of help is getting through the AI tools, self-help tools or the wearables and other things. So the patient can very much aware of his conditions to take some decisions. Not that he is going to perform the operations on its own, but it will help him to take the decisions better. And the third is the experience improvement from a clinical perspective, so that, with all the remote patient monitoring and wearables and all those things, right? The experience of the patient is very closer to that of a consumer, very similar to your Amazon buying experience. We are making the patients more like a consumer. From a provider perspective, the trends we see is more on the telehealth and the real-time health monitoring, so that we get to know the patient's 360-degree view of the patient from anywhere the patient present. And the more AI-based or the deep learning-based analytics, especially for the voice and text, because a lot of healthcare data is still unstructured, not still, it is unstructured in the terms of voice and text plays a major role in understanding the patient condition. So the more applications, if you have seen, Microsoft has bought Nuance, which is a very big in voice and text analytics. So those kind of things are also happening. And the third important thing that is happening in the provider space is the collaboration, because it's not like, especially in US, correct? It's not like people may go to a primary care physician, but you just don't stay with the primary care physician forever. There is a lot of scope for referrals to a specialist, and people have to collaborate with each other to get the outcome, which is the third one, correct? The value for the cost is, from the payer perspective, is ultimately about the outcomes. But in order for the outcomes to happen, the providers have to collaborate among themselves much better. Okay, so these three use cases that we see are emerging from a provider perspective. And the most important is the payers, because everything revolves around payments and the money that is being generated through the healthcare. And there, the very important analysis is about prevention. It's no longer people let the illness happen and then treat them and then pay it. Rather, the focus of the providers has been what you call it as a value-based care. Is all about how do I understand the patient much better with the use of AI and analytics and prevent it. Okay, for example, take the consumer journey analytics, which is known as an episode in the US healthcare. This thing, the episode is typically, if you take a surgery, correct, it doesn't happen in one day, correct? A knee replacement surgery doesn't happen in one day. It starts with some kind of symptoms, and the patient or the consumer goes to some physiotherapist and get it checked and further refer to a doctor, further take some more tests, and then ultimately makes his knee replacement, and then takes further visual help, aid and other thing, and take better of it. So which means that lot of these events can be predicted ahead of time, okay, with the proper analysis and the proper collaboration or the interoperability of the data. So this consumer journey analytics, earlier, correct, we used to have a customer journey analytics, how the customer onboarded to a ecosystem and how he exits, correct? Very similarly, how a patient gets towards an illness and treated and get well. So that is also a consumer journey, which is getting a lot of attention. Of course, the population health is all about how do I ensure that the patient population in a region, because typically in hospitals in a region will ultimately serve the patients in that region. So any kind of a demography based or a habit based analytics of those patient population, especially it happened in COVID kind of a cases, correct? If there is a COVID hotspot in an area, naturally all the patients in that area get the illness. Okay, so how do I help that? And the most important thing is today is, because there is so many systems that are in the picture, correct? So many systems are in the picture, so much duplication of data. There is not a good way to identify a patient, which is known as a positive patient identification, PPI, or the master patient index. Those kind of things are missing in today's context. Of course, a lot of initiatives like Ayushman Bharat may ultimately aim at identifying a unique patient, but Aadhaar and all may not be the solution for identifying a patient. That may be useful for identifying for other finance and other purposes, but yet for the patient identification, there has to be more effort has to be taken, so that tomorrow, even if a patient goes in an unconscious state to an hospital, the hospital should be able to identify who is that patient and get all its records from the various EHR system, not just from one hospital, but across the hospital, and able to treat him. Okay, so that is known as a consumer identity or the patient identity. So you see a lot of emerging trends that are happening in this, three areas. Of course, there are more towards it. Okay, goal of analytics of understanding population health or the episode health episode analytics. Those are one side is happening. The second side is from a provider perspective, how do I monitor the patient and how do I understand the patient irrespective of his what language he speaks, especially in India, correct? People may speak different languages, yet how do I understand? That's where the text and voice analytics playing into the role. And from a patient perspective, consumerization of the patient, how easily the patient can get the treatment, correct? More and more decentralized clinical, correct? He doesn't have to go to the hospital, which is far away by traveling and waiting. Can it happen closer to it by putting more kiosks, more wearables, more kind of personalized healthcare devices, okay? And the role of AI in predicting the illness earlier enough, because the patient is the master in determining his own illness. So more AI-driven patient decision aids and improving the experience of this thing. So these are all the trends that we see. Of course, various technologies like blockchain, AI, data lake, and mobility, augmented reality, everything plays a role in each one of them. Okay, so that's what I wanted to conclude with respect to the healthcare technology trends and the use cases that typically the healthcare service providers like us are concentrating. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Srinivasan. We are pleased to have you share your knowledge with us, and we are also glad to have Gav as one of the supporters for the initiative. We look forward to our continued collaboration. Thank you.
Sure.
Growing digitalization is leading to large amount of data getting generated that requires corresponding storage capabilities. This data can also be used for creating data lakes, where advanced analytics and AI ML algorithms can be used for prediction and personalization of services. AWS is a key player in providing the cloud-based solution towards accelerating the digitalization of healthcare data. I now invite Mr. Kumar Raghavan, India Head, Startup Sales Segment, AWS, for the second technology keynote session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Are you able to see my screen and the charts?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Thank you so much. So good afternoon. I'm Kumar Raghavan. I head the startup business for AWS in India. And in my team, we have deep domain specialists in healthcare who help startups with vertical and technology expertise. I want to spend the next 10 minutes giving you an overview of the building blocks of a modern healthcare data platform. Right. So let me start with the typical patient journey. This is a typical patient journey where they start at the consultation to diagnostics, to treatment, to insurance, and finally to wellness or recovery. Now, preventive health is an extended part of the journey. You heard this from the other speakers as well. And it's becoming increasingly important in India to reduce the burden of healthcare infrastructure and reduce the cost of healthcare, especially for the population at the bottom of the economic pyramid. Right? And what we do is when we look at the patient journey, at AWS, we work very closely with organizations across the spectrum of care. So from healthcare providers focused at the point of care, to healthcare payers that finance or reimburse the cost of care, to healthcare startups that provide application-specific solutions throughout the healthcare industry. Now, AWS provides the foundational technology to drive security, to drive compliance, agility, and innovation. Now, our focus on technology solution allows the entire healthcare industry to worry less about the undifferentiated value of commodity IT and allows them to focus on what matters most, which is really the patients. So if we look at what these organizations do, we get a very first-hand view of some of the innovations that's happening in the health tech industries. And again, when you look at some of the use cases, these are not comprehensive, but what we see is, especially with corporates and startups looking at healthcare as an area of innovations, there are multiple innovations happening across various fronts. So starting with teleconsultation. So that has seen an immense growth post-pandemic. So streamlining patient engagement is another big area. Now, patients face challenges around long queues or lack of communications and even using digital tools. So all of that is getting easier and easier with tech. Another area is diagnostics, where AI-powered diagnostic solutions have emerged across the spectrum, which aid in analyzing medical images, ECGs, pathology samples. They are just a few examples, of course. And what we believe is with increasing data availability, and especially after Ayushman Bharat digital mission becomes more and more mainstream, startups will have more and more access to data so that they can train their machine learning models even better. And if you look at treatment, healthcare is moving from horizontal to vertical. We have standalone chains in India, for example, catering to the verticals of maternity and nephrology, to take just 2 examples. And if you look at insurance, making insurance claims a seamless process is an area where huge strides are being made today. And finally, in the area of prevention, there is a lot of awareness, particularly for the need for preventive care, and that's led to an explosive growth of fitness and nutrition-based applications and trackers. Now, what does all this mean? Over the past decade, what we have seen is the digital transformation in healthcare results in a huge amount of data being generated. And that's a massive volume for multiple patients happening across the country every single day, every single moment. Now, the reality is this data is quite unstructured, and this information can be trapped in lab reports, in insurance claims, in clinical studies, recorded conversations over voice or video, X-rays, doctors' notes, pretty much anything that comes your way. Now, the process to extract this information is very, very labor intensive and can be very error prone. And the cost and operational complexity is a challenge for a lot of health organizations. Now, every healthcare provider, payer, or even a life science company is trying to solve the problem of structuring the data. Because if you do, you can make better patient support decisions, you can design better clinical trials, you can operate a lot more efficiently, and identify population health trends. Now, when we transpose the use cases with the data journey, what we see is that when you look at healthcare data such as clinical, demographics, administrative monitoring, or a variety of inputs that come in, they all come in different formats, they come in different sizes, and they come from a variety of sources across the patient journey. Now, the starting point of innovation for startups, particularly in healthcare, is ingesting and storing this data in a very cost-effective and consumable format. Now, this is where the concept of a healthcare data platform comes into picture, where we store data in a centralized data lake, index and organize the same data, and allow it to be consumed for downstream applications like research, analysis, prediction, and personalization. Now, while you can have patient-facing applications or various softwares used by healthcare stakeholders, now the device-based data is getting more and more popular, especially with the rise of wearables and remote patient monitoring. Now, the ingestion of this data can be through custom APIs or through standard interfaces, exchanging data in FHIR, DCOM, and other formats, which are standard across healthcare providers. Now, we looked at the healthcare journey, and let's now see how builders can use AWS to ingest, store, and analyze data. Now, if you look at the box on the left, with AWS, you can build a digital front door experience. So you can leverage services like Amazon Pinpoint, Amazon Connect, Amazon Lex, and Amazon Chime SDK. Now, the digital front door is a seamless experience in any medium, from the time a patient needs health services through treatment and continued throughout their journey. It also entails unified patient experience across phone, or whether they are in person or operating through a website or through an app. Now, when you're building a personalized call or message queues for patients and enabling a very seamless video and chat-based consultation, so all of those are some examples of how digital front door use cases are being built today using AWS services. Now, all this is the layer at which your applications are directly interfacing with the patients. So this is one step before the data journey, but it helps create the right patient experience and channels for data ingestion. Now, data ingestion is the first step in onboarding healthcare onto AWS. AWS services are highly capable of ingesting structured and unstructured data. So AWS has services like AWS IoT Core and Amazon Kinesis to ingest, process, and enrich health devices data. So when you look at data such as historical clinical notes or paper forms, diagnostic reports, medical images, all of these can be uploaded in bulk to AWS using AWS Data Sync, AWS Transfer Family, and AWS Storage Gateway, depending upon the use case. Now, for standard formats such as FHIR, AWS offers FHIR Works on AWS. Now, that's an open source software toolkit, and that can be used to create an FHIR interface or existing healthcare applications and data. So essentially, AWS has services that can be used to ingest data from various sources and in various formats. Moving to data storage, healthcare data in both volume and variety is undergoing a tremendous expansion. Now, a data lake is a centralized, curated, and secured repository that stores all of your data, both in its original form and also those that are prepared for analysis. Now, AWS has services to store and manage all these data types with purpose-built databases, and it can be a block, file, or object-based storage services. Now, at the core of the data lake, data is stored in Amazon S3, and this can be in both raw and prepared formats. Customers of all sizes can store and protect any amount of data for virtually any use case. The data can be consumed directly from S3, or it can be further processed with additional pipelines and handed over to additional services. So for structured and relational data, Amazon Redshift is AWS's cloud data warehouse, which natively supports importing and exporting data from S3. So now that we have a centralized data platform that's already built, the logical next step is to gain actionable insights and uncover new patterns in disparate data sets. Analytics and AI/ML powered solutions are used to speed up the discovery, visualization, and sharing of data and insights. Use cases can be around reporting, it can be around operational optimization, but most importantly, it can be around improving the quality of care by analyzing patient feedback data, health risk modeling, and even personalization. AWS provides the broadest and deepest set of analytics, business intelligence, artificial intelligence, and machine learning services, so that builders can derive meaning from the healthcare data and ultimately improve the patient outcomes. And not last but the least, compliance. We are in a highly regulated industry, and this encompasses the whole data journey. Healthcare is among the most regulated industry across multiple verticals that you can think of. And a growing number of healthcare organizations are using AWS cloud services to process, to store, and transmit protected health information, making security and compliance increasingly important. So I would highly recommend that you read a recently released white paper on navigating regulatory and compliance requirements for HCLS on AWS. The content of this white paper was developed based on experience and getting feedback from AWS healthcare and life sciences partners and customers. So it includes guidance and references to help you in the application of compliance requirements, such as data privacy, data residency, logging and auditing, disaster recovery, and so on. So we also have AWS partners who can help you automate parts of your compliance journey. Now, finally, this is a view of the modern healthcare data platform with all of its building blocks. Data is ingested from enterprise platforms, devices, third-party applications, all of these stored in a data lake, which can be processed, analyzed, and shared. Now, the data lake may talk to other AWS services and external tools and applications which are serving the needs of researchers, clinicians, and data scientists. So AWS solution architects, professional services, and partners can all help you build and scale your application as you leverage AWS to architect these building blocks, which are important parts of a modern healthcare data platform. And we have multiple organizations today like Practo, Tata 1mg, Mfine, Culprit. All of these are using all of the AWS services and more in India today. And this is just a preview of some of the organizations which are using the AWS services to provide all the modernization of healthcare journey that's happening for the patients today. India today is one of the world's largest open markets for technology. And at AWS, we are really committed to enable Indian builders and businesses to build a better India. So feel free to reach out to us and discuss your particular requirements. And thank you once again to the NASSCOM team for providing us this opportunity to speak with all of you.
Before we move further, Mr. Raghavan, can you just stop sharing your screen so that we take a screenshot of yours? Basically. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Kumara, for sharing such a wonderful talk. And I'm sure that we all have learned something new from your experiences. And we'll continue our collaboration to learn and implement the knowledge for the newer venues. Thank you so much. Technology and innovation sure are the key pillars for any industry. However, we cannot underestimate the role of human resources because ultimately it falls upon these humans to adopt the technology and use it in service of customer delivery. I now invite Ms. Sigal Atmos, President and Chief Executive Officer, the Medics Group, for the third technology keynote. Over to you, Ms. Atmos. Please unmute, ma'am.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Namaste. It's a very big pleasure to collaborate and work so closely with NASSCOM. This is an organization that I truly, deeply appreciate. And I would like to personally thank Mr. Sanjeev Malhotra, who is a dear friend of us, and actually also, while Medics was promoting the healthcare ecosystem and ran a pan-Indian digital health competition, Mr. Sanjeev Malhotra was on our esteemed panel of judges. So thank you very much for having us today again. And thank you for the strong collaboration. I'm very proud to be speaking of something that I believe is at the center, the front, and the back of every person today in this pandemic, post-pandemic era. I actually call it that we're not anymore in the acute phase of the pandemic or in the regular period of the pandemic. We are in the chronic phase of the pandemic. It's not gone away, and it's still part of our lives, but it has transformed us. And it has also transformed us and each and one of you of those companies that are part of the NASSCOM organization under that umbrella. I'm sure that you feel how important healthcare has become for your productivity, for your success, for your bottom lines, and for your employees' wellness and satisfaction, for their engagement with each and every one of your organizations. Today, I'm very proud to speak about the future of healthcare, clearly about the challenges, the opportunities, the digitalization in the era of the post-pandemic, or what I like to call the chronic pandemic. Before I go into a little bit more details, if I may, I would like to share that today, as I said, more than ever, employers are not just digital or software or hardware or IT companies or tech companies. Actually, all the companies today are healthcare companies. Now, this might sound strange or not realistic or absurd, but I would like to give you an example of something that was said even pre-pandemic. In 2017, by someone that is way more important and significant to this world than myself. And in 2017, Warren Buffett, one of the world's biggest investors ever, has made a speech, a presentation to General Motors. And in front of the global management of General Motors, he said, well, dear General Motors, you are not a car company. But clearly General Motors creates cars, right? You are actually a health and benefits company with an auto company attached. Everyone in the crowd was laughing. Why did they ask him, do you think that we're not a car company? Well, he said, open your books, your financial books, and you will all see that your company is actually investing more in healthcare because you have so many employees. And you need to make sure that they have health insurance. You have to make sure that they are healthy, that they keep up the productivity. Otherwise, you will be challenged in such a way that it will reduce your bottom line or affect you tremendously. So in fact, you're spending more on healthcare than on steel, while steel is the core thing you need to create cars. Starbucks actually spends more in their yearly budget on healthcare, for example, than on coffee beans. So I'm reaching out to you, and I would like to remind everyone how important healthcare is for your success, for your bottom line, for the productivity of your employees, and for you as employers. In India specifically, in the tech sector, we know that where attracting and retaining talent is key, health benefits and ensuring the employees are healthy and have access to affordable, equal, quality-driven care is key and is crucial. So this really puts healthcare in the middle of everything that you do, and it puts you in the business of healthcare. The pandemic's impact on employers and employees and on every and each and one of us has been tremendous, and we all know it. It really changed employee expectations. People are more educated, more aware. They would like to be more healthy because they know that if another variant comes or another pandemic or now even another chronic disease or serious medical condition, they will not be well off. So they would like to be healthier. How can they become healthier? Clearly, they expect their employers to provide solutions for that. Lack of access to quality-driven medical care, and a lot of time remote and virtual from the safety and the comfort of their homes or from their offices, is opening up a lot of opportunities to digital health, to technology, to new software, to apps, and to remote medical services. Employers and insurers are becoming more aware that they need to support their employees in their physical well-being, but also with their mental health aspects. As mental health has become, in this post-pandemic period, less taboo, more of an issue, and is worrying a lot of people who suffer from long COVID, who suffer from anxiety, from insecurity, and other issues. These physical and mental health issues introduce new services and new products that address those needs and address those pain points. We know specifically that 68% of the Indian companies, and these are surveys that were done across India, are taking serious and a variety of actions and measures to newly protect their employers' well-being, employees' well-being, and offer more access to digital health solutions. But mind you, not just primary care, not just access to a doctor when you have a throat pain or a stomach pain, but also to expert care, specialty care, mental health solution, cancer care, rehabilitation, and a lot of different services. 56% of the companies actually plan to add new benefits to address mental and emotional issues. This has not been so before, specifically not in India. 47% of the companies intend to enable remote and digital checkups, assessments, and health checks available on the apps of the employer. This is quite significant, and this is changing the landscape in a significant way. Specifically in India, digital health is a very exciting landscape. We're investing in companies, the Medix Group is investing in digital health companies across India, is participating and partnering and driving that space, because we believe this is the only way, aligned with the government, that India can reinvent, recreate, reshape its healthcare landscape and ensure that everyone will have access to better care. It has really a sector that has tremendously changed in the last 2 years. The pandemic exposed so many pain points and shortcomings of the healthcare infrastructure. We realize now that hospital beds are in shortage, doctors are in shortage. So we need to find new ways to improve accessibility without needing more beds, because more beds are not going to come. More doctors are not specifically going to come. The government cannot triple or quadruple its budget on healthcare or the percentage of spending on healthcare out of GDP, because it is impossible. There are additional other priorities. So there must be ways to manage the needs while keeping the budget in check. The only way is through digital. We know that building a robust, digitally enhanced healthcare ecosystem is the only way forward, and it requires regulatory changes, structural changes, and engagement of all stakeholders together. The Indian government proudly announced 2 new projects in the union budget of 2022 and 2023 that are, and there are various initiatives there, both on a federal and on a state level, to advance those digital health new projects in that ecosystem of EMRs, interoperable data management, access to data, AI, digital health solutions, and that would absolutely improve the accessibility and the delivery of good quality medical care. We see that more and more Indian and health tech startups are emerging with 2.2 billion raised, 2.2 billion US dollars already raised in 2021, and close to 4,000 ventures across the healthcare value chain. That is really enormous and very significant. We are very proud to play a very significant part in that space, as we see the real need to shift to a new care delivery. We see it happening. We see the appetite from the patients. We see the engagement from the providers and the government who is aligning with new regulations and supporting innovation. Okay. The pandemic resulted mainly in a rapid rise of different solutions, and we see that 85% of clinicians used already teleconsultations and digital platforms to support their patients during lockdown. 50% of the doctors found digital platforms to be very effective and as effective as face-to-face interactions. 80% share that teleconsultation services were for first-time users, but a significant number will or share that they would use it again. 44% of teleconsultations were from non-metro cities. This is a very significant advance, and this will allow Indian rural areas to progress significantly. I'm trying to speak fast because I know I have a limited period of time, but I'm very passionate about what we do, so give me and bear with me a little longer. I will do this very quickly. So what's next in the healthcare post-pandemic time? We know that telehealth is going to be at the forefront of healthcare delivery. It's going to allow more personalized, targeted, and flexible interactions for employees and for the people in general. If it's with insurers, through employers, through consumer-driven large corporates, and it will enable to raise the well-being and increase the productivity of employers and their employees. We know also that in addition to telehealth, we will see home care. Home care is among the fastest growing healthcare industries in the world, with revenues rising to over 100 billion over the last few years. And we see that treating people at home, instead of having to pay those high expenses with the high overheads in hospitals, with the teams that need to be around 24/7, etc., is becoming more and more prevalent in elderly homes, but also in the young people and the young population. People want to stay at home. They do not want to go to the hospital. And that actually is going to allow savings of billions of dollars every year, which could then go into the pharmaceutical, into better treatment, more treatments, and more digital health solutions. The drivers really includes, for home care and for telemedicine, is those aging populations that we know. The increasing prevalence of chronic diseases, which means that people live longer with chronic diseases and do not pass away. So we need tools and solutions to keep them as healthy, going, and their productivity at par. We see a growing physician acceptance of home care and telemedicine, which is great. And we see the medical advances, so more cure options for many more diseases, and a significantly growing focus on cost-efficient, yet driven to better and quality-driven